Snipers, you have to see what's happening in the Bitcoin price this Saturday, as there are some very important puzzle pieces that I want to discuss with you, and Josh also has some thoughts to share. The first thing is the fact that we're still seeing manipulation with this Binance USDT chart with our daily candle closing red, but on the Coinbase chart, notice how our daily candle closed green. And another very significant puzzle piece that I want to just throw right off the bat is we do have this potential bullish crossover on the 3-day chart. It's yet to be completely confirmed because of the fact that we have yet to see this 3-day candle close. We do have 2 days left on this, but I just want to throw this out there because in the past, when we've seen this 3-day bullish crossover, Bitcoin has in fact found a temporary bottom before seeing further price action to the upside. You can see that happened here in January, and we also had that happen here in July. We can even go as far as to look at this price action from October. Every time we've had that 3-day crossover, we've seen some bullish price action. I just want to throw that right off the bat. But let's dive into the 15-minute chart because I want to talk about the significance of what Bitcoin does in the next 24 to 48 hours, because we do have some market structure to discuss here. The symmetrical triangle that Bitcoin is in, we have some indecision on the weekend. That's not a surprise for those that have been tuned into the Snipers channel. And just notice this, if Bitcoin at this point were to break out from the symmetrical triangle, why would that be significant during the weekend? Well, that would also assume that Bitcoin will start to strengthen against the S&P 500, because just that breakout alone will allow the Bitcoin against SPY chart to get above its 200-week moving average. And why is that important, Snipers? Well, that means that we potentially have a confirmation that over the next few weeks, over the next few months, we could see Bitcoin outperform the S&P 500. As we know, this 200-week moving average in the past has acted as a very strong support for Bitcoin. And this is the first time that we've had full weekly candles below the 200-week moving average. And so the significance of this next move, if Bitcoin were to follow through with the symmetrical triangle to the upside, is the fact that Bitcoin now has the potential to outperform the S&P 500, and that would make 24,000 US dollars very easy for Bitcoin. And then let's look at this 4-hour chart, Snipers, because just notice how right now Bitcoin is having a cup of coffee below this 200-period moving average on the 4-hour chart. What's also doing the exact same thing? Well, look at the S&P 500 having a cup of coffee below this 200-period moving average on the 4-hour chart. So we have to assume that when equity markets open up on Monday, we have futures markets opening up tomorrow, that if we want to see strength for Bitcoin, we also need the S&P 500 to conquer itself above this 200-period moving average, and that would be a very big confirmation that next week we could see some potential upside. But of course, if we reject this 200-period moving average, that would not be a bullish case. And so the significance of the downside scenario, let's say this symmetrical triangle fails and Bitcoin breaks to the downside, well, now we potentially have to monitor this $21,000 level. This is the previous weekly open, because if we get any confirmations hourly and 4-hour below the 21,000 US dollar level, now we have the potential to come back and knock on this extremely important support level, the 2018 previous all-time high, 19,798. An hourly and 4-hour candle confirmation below the previous weekly open at 21,000 assumes that we come and knock on this door. And you all know when you knock on a door multiple times, what's the likelihood of that door opening up? Pretty high, and that could actually bring a very big downside scenario on the table. So there's a very important 24 to 48 hours ahead of us. Now, would it be odd for Bitcoin to even break above this 200-period moving average on the 4-hour chart? Because let's say that the S&P 500 hasn't done it. Some people may assume, well, why would Bitcoin be able to do it? Well, look at the NASDAQ. We're actually above the 200-period moving average on the 4-hour chart. And so it wouldn't be a surprise for Bitcoin to actually get above that 200-period moving average. So there's certainly a downside and upside scenario on the table for this week, and I think that's very clear. And I see we have Ethan, Osama, and Learn Crypto TV on our live stream, and we'll take some questions from our live audience. I want to throw out a couple other puzzle pieces for those that are watching the replay of this video, and we'll get into those questions and have Josh share his thoughts. The VIX, which is what the implied volatility is in the equity markets, closed with a pretty bearish weekly candle. This is a very positive sign that the S&P 500 could potentially see some upside into this next week. So I just want to throw this bullish puzzle piece on the table. As you guys know, in the macro, I am extremely bullish on Bitcoin. Now, here's a bearish puzzle piece that we'll monitor this week as well. The Euro to USD chart, it did have a nice bullish candle close for the week, and that assumes that we might have a risk-on environment coming into next week. But check this out. If we look at market structure, we haven't yet really tested this major support. So to see the DXY push up a little bit further into next week and the Euro to USD chart to fail to see upside here and see further downside also wouldn't be a surprise. We're at a very big inflection point, snipers. That is very clear right now. And so here's really what Bitcoin is doing for those that are used to our sniper support and resistance levels. Bitcoin is having its cup of coffee, yet to test the major resistance of this range at 24,000 US dollars. Getting to 24,000 would be a very big deal because that starts to imply that this could be a short-term bottom that would actually fulfill this symmetrical triangle that Bitcoin has broken out of. And then we could potentially start talking about further upside targets for Bitcoin. And then we can also assume Bitcoin has the opportunity to outperform the S&P 500. But a failure of this scenario is going to mimic this fractal that occurred where Bitcoin was at 30,000 US dollars. For those that have been tuned in, you remember this fractal that we've covered quite extensively. I'll go ahead and just throw out a ghost feed of this fractal. If we cannot see this fulfillment of the breakout to 24,000, then this is what we potentially have on the table here, which is a fake out from the symmetrical triangle and potential downside scenarios still on the table. Like I said, we break below 21,000 US dollars. Not only does that copy this fractal that brought us more downside, but now it puts the 2018 previous all-time high back on the table, and that's not going to be a very bullish sign in the immediate short term. So Billy says, me too, on the live stream. If you guys have questions, feel free to throw them out. I'll let Josh share his screen in a few moments and share his thoughts. But overall, I will say this, snipers. At this point, Bitcoin is in an indecision zone. It is above 21,000 US dollars, which is very positive. But we know the equity markets are starting to get exhausted based on this 4-hour chart, testing this major resistance. And so we're really going to have to wait until next week, in my opinion, to get further confirmations and answers to what Bitcoin is going to potentially do. But if we do at any point see an upside scenario, the significance, in my opinion, is the fact that now Bitcoin can start getting above its 200-week moving average against the S&P 500. That would be super positive because we could assume further strength and outperformance for Bitcoin. Josh, I'd love to hear your thoughts and talk about what's happening on your charts. I'll go ahead and switch to your screen here.
For sure. I appreciate that. And it's important what's happening in our charts, but it's also important what's happening in our minds, because it's our mindset, and 80% of trading, right, is psychology. So not only do I want to show you my chart, I just want to let you know also my mindset with this current, relief rally, you could call it, if you want to call it that. There's several big analysts right now that are warning people not to go long. And I always like to ask questions, essentially. So, Naeem, do you want to know the number one way of, if you should go long or short right now? Do you want to know the number one way of figuring that out?
Tell me. It's never a bad idea to have a second perspective.
Okay. Just ask yourself if you would go long right here. If you would open up a long position right now at this current price. And if the answer is no, then you know that you should probably be going short, which, I'm just like you. I'm a Bitcoin bull, especially long term. You can tell that just from looking at the chart logarithmically, right? But I'm just saying in the immediate short term, it always goes down a little bit before it continues higher to the upside. So, or even down further, I'm never ruling that out of the table. I'm very market neutral. But right now, I am in a short, and my entry point was right at this wick, close to this red line here. I've already, because I'm using a little bit, I'd say like medium leverage, right? What I would say is that I've already taken profit at this center line, which you pointed out on the last live stream. You've identified this parallel channel. And also you basically said that this zero line right here, the midpoint, is holding up very strong. So since I was in a short, I figured for risk mitigation, might as well take profit around here. So I sold 50% of my position, and then moved my stop loss down to where you're seeing it right now, which is this red dotted line. And I'm just going to keep riding it down. And if we have a break through the middle line of this parallel channel, then like you said, we could definitely see further downside. So that's kind of what I'm looking at the immediate short term. And, you can just tell also the 4-hour RSI coming down is also, a big indication. And we just had a huge pump, and it's just failing to basically, just even looking at the formation of the candle structure, that's where this line is drawn right here. It's just consistently lower highs, lower highs, lower highs, lower highs. So that's what's happening right now in the current market. And so what I'm looking for is my take profit target is around this zone of, 20,700, maybe if I'm lucky, 20,436. But, I set up limit orders when I sell my position. I don't just sell it all at once. So as it reaches certain levels, essentially, that's whenever I'm selling my position. So I've already basically sold 50% of my position at profit already. I moved my stop loss not just to break even, which it was initially, but as the market started going down more, then I put my stop loss to also in profit, despite leaving 50% in the position. And the rest, I'm just going to ride. I'm just going to ride it. I'll check it right now. I don't know. Let's see. Since I'm using a little higher leverage, it's a higher percent. So yeah, right now I'm up 49%, but it's not like ridiculous high leverage or anything like that. So I'm just, so what I'm doing is I've already taken profit. I still have a good amount of skin in the game, 50% of my position. Add some light to medium leverage to that, a good entry. And now my stop loss is not only break even, but it's in profit, which still has what I believe to be an unlikely scenario for that to get hit, which if it does get hit, great. I still made money on the trade, which is this red line right here. I don't mind showing you guys this in real time. I'm not worried about people counter trading me, but basically 21,673, that's my stop loss. My entry was right up here at the spread line. So anyway, that's what I'm doing right now. And I'm not expecting, major downside, anything like that. We're not asking for much, as we always say here on the channel, Naeem and I, we're not asking for much, give us 20,700, give us whatever. And it's all, and just like he said, there's that symmetrical triangle, which is interesting because the way I have my chart painted out right now is basically, this parallel channel on top of the symmetrical triangle. So we have the symmetrical triangle just to see where potential target may really be. Where's the confluence? The confluence is all the way down here at 20,000. So if we hit that, here's the thing, we could come down to hit 20,000 and still be considered bullish because we're still making lower or basically higher lows, higher lows, higher lows. So that's why I'm keeping the channel that Naeem so brilliantly discovered. Once again, he was the first one to call out the symmetrical triangle before everyone else. He was the first one to call out the parallel channel. I mean, this guy is a beast, right? Not only that, but when he mentioned the middle line holding up like this, I was like, man, you really are gifted, So, and then I basically just drew this line right here. Like you said, you can do a smaller triangle, but I just drew it as resistance because as long as we continuously respect this line coming down, then I'm going to stay in the short. But yeah, we are at a critical level due to this middle line right here.
I'm really glad you brought this up, Josh, because there's certainly confluence. I'll pull it up on my chart here with the monthly open and the potential of us to test it. So for the downside scenario, and we'll talk about that because it's important to always address the bears and the bulls. If we look at that confluence, I really like that you brought that up because just notice here, based on time, now if we were to come down, let's say, maybe not today, but maybe in a few days, there's that point in which we could find confluence here where let's say on the 13th of July, which interestingly enough is when the CPI numbers come out on Monday, let's say on the 13th, we maybe even Bitcoin pumps up and then comes down on the 13th, who knows? But around the 13th of July, there would be confluence here with the monthly open and the previous resistance of the symmetrical triangle to turn into a support, which if you want a healthy breakout, even like you said, if this potentially could be the bottom, a test of that monthly open could be on the table there, where not only do we breach below 21,000 US dollars, but we also come down to test this as a support, a previous resistance, also the monthly open, and not a coincidence, another confluent point, the 2018 previous all-time high. And then maybe from there, we could see where Bitcoin wants to head. And so July 13th is going to be a very important day. That's when CPI numbers come out. It's going to be interesting to see what happens on July 13th. What if, until July 13th, the equity markets just sit here below the 200-period moving average, and then we see them open up, and then we see maybe a downside scenario. I guess, let's say CPI numbers come out with inflation month over month moving up, that could be a bearish sign. But if inflation starts to come down, that could be a confirmation to allow price action to relieve itself to the upside. So that was very nice to point out, Josh. Is there any other questions? Ren says, still in my long from last night, this price action is brutal. I want it to go up or just stop me out already. I can totally see where you're coming from when you say the price action is brutal. And so I understand where you're coming from as well, Josh, saying, we're not asking for much. You want to make another dollar, right? And so taking a short position may be the way to do that right now and not a long position. The macro trend is still on your side. And the trend is your friend until she dumps you. So, so far she hasn't dumped us, and so the trend obviously in the macro here is down. Hourglass says, holding top of the range, very healthy for upside continuation. Definitely agree we can see a shallow pullback to 21,000, 20,750, but this is looking like it has real legs on the 4-hour chart. Yeah, let's say we were to come down to form another higher low. I think that maybe that July 13th time frame is a very interesting one because maybe we do come down, like you said, Josh, to test that $20,000 level at some point. July 13th also seems like, around that time, July 13th and 14th could be that time where we come down to test this area to form that third higher low. I'm sure there have been a lot of leveraged positions entering into this range where we had the previous weekly open and the 2018 previous all-time high. So I don't know if that wouldn't be off the table for exchanges to clear out some of those positions. Another very interesting thing that we'll have to talk about tomorrow is our previous weekly open here in green, 21,000, is going to adjust to 19,315. So I'll go ahead and make that adjustment now. And so that's going to pretty much be another major level of support. And just notice how that's actually below the monthly open in 2018 previous all-time high. So if we do see price action below 20,000, we're going to watch this level here at 19,315 because that's going to be the previous weekly open, and that's going to be significant for the next 7 days. But for now, 21,000 is significant. That is our current previous weekly open. But more importantly, it's sort of the make it or break it for this resistance here that we've so far conquered. I'd say that we're here wicking above it, having a cup of coffee here, so it tells us that's not the final destination. We could argue though that the candle high here was a final destination if we start to come down. So, it's certainly not the most enthusiastic price action right now, but there are some cases to make that Bitcoin can come to test prices towards 23,000 if it were to just do what the NASDAQ has already done, getting above that 200-period moving average on a 4-hour, that would be on the table. But that happening is more importantly going to affect our stance against Bitcoin against the S&P 500. So the upside scenario would really bring a lot of positive perspectives into this next quarter because Bitcoin against the S&P 500 getting back above this 200-week moving average would be a huge deal. I think that's even more important than seeing Bitcoin against its spot price get above the 200-week moving average right now in the immediate short term, because if if we can get that Bitcoin against SPY chart above the 200-week moving average, then now it's no more questions asked. Bitcoin can outperform the S&P 500 as much as it wants on its green days. And that's what we'd like to see to assume this is a reversal. Bitcoin against the money supply still fully detached, free falling and skydiving off of the 200-week moving average. So that's not a bullish puzzle piece. And so, I at the end of the day am, entering into long-term spot positions here. Have I been taking long positions on leverage? Absolutely not. I mean, it's been a while since I've taken a long position on leverage for Bitcoin. The last time we took a long position on leverage was after the monthly open. We saw that there was a reaction here around 18,600, and that confirmed to me that that was our higher low. And so we came in and took a long position on that retest now that we had the confirmation right at that $18,900 level. That was our last long position that we took. And so I'm still riding that out, but I've already taken most of those profits off the table. So the position is quite insignificant right now. I'm still looking for a long position. I'm not, to answer your question, Josh, taking a long position here just because of the likelihood that we come down to test these levels here where there's tons of confluence at the monthly open, the 2018 previous all-time high, 20,000. And so, guys, remember to subscribe to Josh's YouTube channel. The link is in the description below. Josh, we really appreciate your insights. It's always good to have another perspective. Whether it's in agreement or in disagreement, it's still another perspective. And so I'm sure it helps some of you guys that are tuned into our channel. And you can see right now, in immediate short term with Bitcoin coming down, Josh, you must be a very happy man.
Yeah, I'm in 60% profit right now. And I've already taken a lot of profit.
So we are approaching a very important support here. So,
I'm thinking about selling more right now, honestly, because I'm shorting and I'm on leverage, but it just keeps tanking. And, as we always say here on the channel, you saw it here first, right? Classic line. Because I just mentioned my short, and it's just literally tanking right now, like on the 7 minute.
Somebody said I'm new to the channel. Remember to subscribe to the channel.
But I am going to be selling some of my position here very soon because we're at that critical middle line of the parallel channel that Naeem has developed. And then one thing I also wanted to say too, Naeem, is that I love how you have your macro, shapes and patterns and trend lines, but you also have your like micro, like shapes and patterns and trend lines and all that, like kind of like that little triangle within the big symmetrical triangle.
Yeah, absolutely, which we're testing right now. Look at that. It's a major test of support here for the bears. For those that want to take a long on the weekend, this would be the opportunity, but I just don't see the risk to reward here for a long position before the CPI numbers come out.
Wait a second, what is that? We're not right there, are we? Bitcoin versus... I guess it's just a different chart on Binance. I don't know. That looks nothing like the Bitcoin chart for me.
What do you have? Let's see what you've got on your chart.
I would, but I'm about to sell some of my position.
There you go.
One of those things like Naeem are the guys that are out here doing it. We're not just talking about it, right? Like every single day, Naeem and I are on the call. We're like, man, we're about to go long. We're about to go short, or like whatever the case is. But no, there we go. Yeah, that looks more like.
While you're handling that, Josh, Triple X on the chat asked, what would be your upside target if CPI looks good? Well, here's what I think. I think that Bitcoin's going to stay above the symmetrical triangle until CPI numbers come out. So we can assume that we stay above 20,000. We could come down, flirt below this level, whatever it might be. But I think until the CPI numbers come out, we're going to stay above this and maintain this breakout. If the CPI numbers come out well, I think that the first thing we want to just address is the fulfillment of this symmetrical triangle breakout to test the 50-day moving average. And what's interesting about this scenario is if we do get there, if we see the full fulfillment and we get towards this 50-day moving average sitting right at 24,800, it puts us above very important levels, which is 23,795 and 24,295. And so what could happen on the bullish case is, let's say CPI numbers come out well, we break to that 50-day, and now we hold this as a support, and now we can start looking at further upside targets. And that's going to be the significance of that. So, breaking through this zone is what I think could happen if CPI comes out well. If CPI comes out bad, then
Um,
assume the complete opposite of that. Assume a breakdown scenario, because equity markets have been reacting to CPI quite heavily, and so I think it certainly is something that people are waiting for. So that's July 13th. The CPI numbers come out. I mean, we might have a breakdown right now as we record.
that's what I'm
this live
saying,
stream.
man. Like I'm literally like watching this thing as you're talking, and I'm just like, should I sell a little bit more now, or should I wait a little bit? But I've already sold, once again, 50% of my position. I've already, taken that profit. My stop loss is in profit, not just break even, but in profit. And I still have a good amount in, 50%. As we mentioned here on the channel, we usually do, $1 to $2 million trades. Lately, it's been like just a couple $100,000 at a time, just because it can be very uncertain, and you got to make sure you're setting your stop loss at the right place, entering at the right place. Hopefully, we do have a breakdown though, just a temporary one, because I'm a bull in the long run. So it's all temporary, guys. That's all you gotta know. It's all temporary.
Yeah, we'll continue. Let's look at the volume here. It doesn't look like it's too heavy, so I'm not too concerned about this downside move here. Might stop looking at Binance for volume, but this is quite low. But if volume does start to tick up, that could get a little bit concerning here. But
that's the cool thing with bidding on leverage. You don't need much, right? We're not asking for much from the chart. We're just asking for much from the exchange.
Yeah, I'm sure there are going to be some bears here front running this. Let's say
there could be. It could be a breakdown. I mean, if it breaks that level,
well, there's
right, as long as it's not a fake out. But it could always be a fake out. But we get asked the question all the time: how do you know if it's going to be a fake out or a breakout? Well, you can look at something called exo charts, and it shows you open interest and where the volume is to allow you to look at the order books in a unique way, so that you can tell based off of pockets of volume at certain levels if it could potentially be a breakout or if it could potentially be a fake out. So that is one way you guys can do it. I'm just sitting over here like, do I sell a little bit or do I just let it keep tanking? But if this is a breakdown, I would kick myself in the ass for selling right now, because let's just put it that way. But one thing I am going to do though, I can't believe I didn't think of this sooner. I'm about to put my stop loss into more profit at 21,504. So let me edit that real quick. 21,504. And the reason why I choose that level is because that is the new daily opens volume weighted average price. And the volume weighted average price, basically. Let's see. The volume weighted average price, basically, yeah. And as you can see on my phone, 63% in profit. Oops, I think I hit the wrong button. But, there we go. Almost 64% in profit. I do a lot of stuff on my phone nowadays. I just have Bybit on my phone. Like even on this trade, I'm looking at my phone, or even on this live stream, I'm looking at my phone. Like, do I sell here or not? But yeah, if we start to see a bounce, I am going to sell just a little bit. What is that old saying, Naeem? No one ever went broke doing what?
Taking profits. Yeah.
Taking profit.
I mean, it's interesting because if this does break down, there's perfect confluence to come already to test the $20,300 level, which is the previous resistance as support. Is this justified based on the four-dimensional revolving parts? Well, it's the weekend, so anything could happen.
Saturday, yeah.
Exactly.
That's why it's all temporary. Like, that's why I entered the short. I was like, oh, it's Saturday, duh. Like, if you just map out every single Saturday, just take a vertical line in TradingView and just map out every single Saturday, and you'll be able to see most likely it probably dumped during that day.
It has been a while.
But from the outside looking in, that's the power of financial channels like this on YouTube. Like someone literally could have hopped on our live stream, and then they heard I was in a short, immediately entered a short. Next thing you know, so it really is helpful. Now, speaking of which, I do want to mention that Naeem has an amazing trading group that everybody here on this live stream live stream should check out at tradersprofitclub.com, and like that's the stuff that Naeem teaches there. That is the stuff that I've learned from, like all the patterns and all the, like I remember him sitting me down years ago. He's like, this is what RSI is. This is what, and if it took a few, you got to admit, Naeem, it took a few years for it to register before, but I was always just a long-term Bitcoin bull hodler back in those days, I wasn't really like an expert in technical analysis. I got in at like 2015. Bitcoin was around like, 2000 a coin or so at the time. So I've been, hot, like a long-term hodler basically. But at the same time, technical analysis, there's one king, and that's Naeem Al-Abedi, So yeah.
Thank you, Josh. Yeah, I appreciate the kind words, and it's going to be interesting. I think we'll see what happens here. If we do break down, that would be, not atypical for a Saturday. You're certainly right. I don't remember the last time we pumped on a weekend, Josh. I couldn't remember the last time Bitcoin pumped on a weekend. I mean, during the bull market, it was pumping every single day, but over the last year and a half, I would say, I don't remember a weekend pump. So I certainly see where that stance comes from. And it does look like we're breaking that market structure.
So as much as I want to stay on this live stream and be like, yo, I'm in a short position, talk about how this price is breaking down, I do unfortunately have a call that I've scheduled, so I'm going to have to hop. But I do want to say thank you so much, Naeem, for hopping on the channel. It's up to you if you want to end the stream or not.
Yeah, we'll wrap up. I want everyone to enjoy their evenings with their family. Happy Eid to anybody celebrating. Thank you guys for tuning in. I pretty much went over all that I needed to, and we appreciate each and every one of you snipers tuned into the channel. Smash the like button before you guys leave the video, and until next time, Josh and I will see you guys on our next live stream. If there's an emergency update, I'll have one out as I always do, and we'll see you guys on our video tomorrow. Hamal says, happy Eid to you too. Shukran jazilan. Thank you guys, snipers.